What if one city block in Miami is worth more than most people's entire net worth, and one man quietly owns the whole thing? Miami is a wealth ecosystem where dynasties are built on cruise ships, basketball courts, demolition permits, and one very expensive island with its own police force. We have 8 families and 8 crazy stories of how money runs around Miami. And trust me, the family at number 1 is beyond your imagination. Let's go. Number 8. The Braman Dynasty. The man who gave Miami its most valuable weekend. Here's a trivia question most people get wrong. Who is personally responsible for the single event that transformed Miami from a regional party destination into a globally recognized cultural capital? Not a politician, not a developer, a car dealer. Norman Braman, self-made billionaire, luxury automotive mogul, and the man who played an instrumental role in bringing Art Basel to Miami Beach in 2002. An annual event that now generates hundreds of millions in economic activity and draws collectors and capital from every corner of the world to this city every December. Before that, Braman had already spent 3 decades building one of the most dominant luxury car retail networks in South Florida. BMW, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, all under the Braman Motors umbrella. His net worth sits between $1.9 billion and $3.9 billion. And his real estate play is as patient as it is methodical. He has spent years quietly assembling an entire city block in Miami's Edgewater neighborhood, property by property, with the long-game discipline of someone who measures success in decades. His art collecting started with poker winnings, a detail that perfectly captures a certain kind of self-made Miami energy, and eventually grew into the funding of the Institute of Contemporary Art in the Miami Design District, and a $40 million contribution that put his name on one of the city's most important cultural institutions. His personal experience with cancer motivated the creation of the Irma and Norman Braman Comprehensive Cancer Center at Mount Sinai, set to open in 2026. Miami Beach renamed a stretch of 17th Street Norman Braman Way in his honor. The man has been here since 1969 and has been building this city longer than most of its current residents have been alive. And next up is a family that took a different kind of blank canvas and turned it into billions. Except their canvas was literally a swamp, and what they built on it became an entire city. Number 7. The Perez family. The condo king who started his art collection with poker winnings. Jorge Perez is personally responsible for more Miami skyline than any other living human being. The related group, which he founded in 1979, has developed over 100,000 residences in South Florida and sold more than $50 billion in properties. Towers like Icon Brickell, the W Miami, and Baccarat residences that define what the city looks like from the water and from the air. His net worth sits between $1.7 billion and $2.6 billion, and the nickname Condo King is not hyperbole. It's a geographic description. But here's what makes the Perez story more interesting than a development resume. He started buying art as a broke student using informal poker game winnings. That collection grew, his taste refined, and the passion eventually produced a $40 million gift of cash and artwork that got his name on the Perez Art Museum Miami, PAM, which now sits on Biscayne Bay and elevates the city's cultural standing in conversations that have nothing to do with real estate. His political history is the spicy layer. Perez was a longtime friend and business partner of Donald Trump, collaborating on multiple New York projects until the relationship broke down over politics. Specifically, Perez very publicly declined to help build Trump's proposed border wall. A man nicknamed the Condo King, drawing his own line. His succession plan is already in motion, transitioning the empire to his sons John Paul and Nick Perez. He operates under a self-described no kings philosophy, which is either deeply ironic or perfectly Miami, depending on your perspective. Now, if turning a swamp into a city is the most patient real estate story here, the next entry is about a man who went bankrupt in Las Vegas, let a half-finished tower sit empty for years, then opened it anyway. Because sometimes the comeback is the whole point. Number 6. The Soffer family. Bankrupt in Vegas, married a supermodel, built an empire. Anyway, in 2007, Jeffrey Soffer started building a Fontainebleau resort in Las Vegas. In 2008, the financial crisis hit The financing evaporated, and the project went bankrupt. For years, a half-finished blue glass tower sat empty on the Strip, one of the most photographed symbols of real estate overreach in American history. Most developers walk away from that story. Soffer regained control, finished the building, and opened it to genuine fanfare in late 2023. That comeback arc is compelling enough on its own. It's not even the headline detail of his decade. The Soffer family fortune traces back to their father, Don Soffer, who in 1967 bought 785 acres of northern Miami-Dade swampland for $6 million. He was not buying a neighborhood. He was buying future land that didn't have a name yet. What he built on it became the entire city of Aventura, the residents, the infrastructure, the Aventura Mall, which is among the most profitable shopping centers in the world. The family net worth has historically been estimated above $4 billion. Following a 2019 business split, sister Jackie Soffer took Turnberry Associates and the Aventura Mall, while Jeffrey concentrated on Fontainebleau development. Jeffrey's personal life has been at least as high profile as his business moves. A marriage to supermodel Elle Macpherson and ownership of Mad Summer, a 257-foot super yacht that is not a subtle object. The Fontainebleau Miami Beach, a 1954 landmark that has hosted presidents and Bond films and is basically woven into the mythology of the city itself, remains the family's most iconic asset and shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. Real estate drama, a Vegas comeback, a supermodel, and the Soffers are still only number 6. The next family brought something to Miami that the whole world noticed: the greatest soccer player alive. Number 5. The Mas family. They brought Messi to Miami. Just let that land for a second. Lionel Messi, the greatest soccer player in the history of the sport. In the summer of 2023, he landed in Miami, put on a pink Inter Miami jersey, and the entire global soccer conversation relocated to a city that most European and South American fans had previously associated with Art Deco architecture and nightlife, rather than serious football. That move, arguably the most consequential in the history of American soccer, was orchestrated in large part by the Mas brothers. Jorge and Jose Mas are the sons of Jorge Mas Canosa, a foundational figure in the Cuban-American community and the founder of Mastech, a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure construction firm reporting $12.3 billion in annual revenues, making it one of the largest Hispanic-owned businesses in the country. The brothers have maintained that industrial foundation while writing their own chapter alongside David Beckham at Inter Miami CF. Combined family fortune, estimated between $3.2 billion and $5 billion. The Messi era turned Inter Miami into the most globally recognizable MLS franchise almost instantly. Merchandise sales, media rights, broadcast interest, all redefined in a matter of months. And simultaneously, the Mas family is building Miami Freedom Park, a $1 billion mixed-use development near Miami International Airport featuring the new stadium, a 26,700-seat venue opening in April 2026, and a 58-acre public park named for their father. An ethics complaint about city lobbying was filed and eventually dismissed, which is, as these things tend to go, a very normal sentence in American stadium development. The Cuban exile story underneath all of this is the part that gives it weight. A family that came from loss, built something lasting, and then brought the world's most famous athlete to the city they chose to call home. That's not just a business deal, that's a statement. Legacy, exile, and Messi. But if you want the family that has been building Miami's identity longer than anyone else on this list, the next dynasty has been doing it for over 50 years, and they've got the trophies to prove it. Number 4. The Arison family. 50 years, 1 ship, 3 NBA championships. Ted Arison arrived in Miami in the early 1970s with a single cruise ship and an idea that seemed optimistic at the time: that regular people deserved access to the kind of luxury ocean travel that had always been reserved for the wealthy, and that Miami was the perfect port to make it happen. From that one vessel, the Mardi Gras, he built Carnival Cruise Line. His son Mickey took it further and built the world's largest cruise operator. A portfolio of 10 brands including Princess, Holland America, and Cunard, generating revenues that make most industries look modest by comparison. Mickey Arison's net worth sits between $8.7 billion and $10.1 billion. He purchased the Miami Heat in 1995 and, through the hire of Pat Riley, oversaw the construction of championship teams that made the franchise genuinely iconic. The Dwayne Wade era, then the Big Three of Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh. 3 titles. A fan culture that is authentically, specifically Miami, in a way that transplant franchises never quite managed to replicate. The Heat aren't just a sports team here, they are a civic institution. Here's the local detail that Miami people love to tell. Mickey Arison is considered the University of Miami's most successful dropout, having left school to work as a sales representative for his father's nascent cruise operation and never looking back. Sales floor to chairman's office at the world's largest cruise company. There is not a business school in the country that would not love to claim that case study. The Arisons navigated the complete industry shutdown of COVID-19 and the reputational weight of the Costa Concordia disaster with the composure of a family that has spent 50 years learning that every storm, eventually, passes. And now, let's look at the next man on this list who arrived much more recently and demolished a historic mansion that previously belonged to Phil Collins and Jennifer Lopez. Because this is Miami, and nothing is too dramatic. Number 3. The Bravo Dynasty. The billionaire who trained with Agassi then tore down J-Lo's house. Before Orlando Bravo was managing one of the most powerful private equity firms on Wall Street, he was a teenager from Puerto Rico training at the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy in Florida, alongside Andre Agassi and Jim Courier. That origin story, surrounded by the best, competing daily at the highest level, learning that talent without work is a liability, shaped the competitive DNA of a man who now runs transactions that reshape entire software industries. His net worth sits between $9.8 billion and $12.8 billion, built through Thoma Bravo, the technology-focused private equity firm that has executed landmark take-private deals including McAfee and SolarWinds. Thoma Bravo is headquartered at 830 Brickell, making Bravo one of the central figures in the transformation of Miami's financial district from a collection of impressive-looking towers into an actual institutional finance hub. The talent and capital that followed him down from Chicago are part of what makes Brickell feel, increasingly, like it's earning the Little Manhattan label. Now, the mansion story, because this is the one Miami cannot stop talking about. In 2021, Bravo purchased a 1929 Mediterranean revival estate on North Bay Road for $39.3 million. Previously owned by Phil Collins. Before that, Jennifer Lopez. Preservationists called it a landmark. Bravo announced demolition plans, citing flooding damage and structural issues. The preservationists said he was dumping history down the trash chute. He tore it down. He is currently building a modern family home on the waterfront lot. In Miami, this is controversial. It is also extremely on-brand. His philanthropic commitment, $100 million toward entrepreneurship and post-Hurricane Maria rebuilding in Puerto Rico, is the part of his identity he talks about most. In a city full of billionaires who arrived recently, Bravo is one of the few who made his roots a public and financial part of who he is. One demolished landmark, $1 billion commitment to where he came from. But if Bravo is rebuilding one block of Miami, the next man is rebuilding the entire financial district, and doing it with the hedge fund that processes 1 in every 5 stock trades in America. Number 2, the Griffin Dynasty. 1 in 5 stock trades. $1 billion tower. One very clear intention. Here is a number worth pausing on, 1 in 5. That is the fraction of all stock trades made in the United States that pass through Citadel Securities, the market-making arm of Ken Griffin's empire. Not 1 in 50, 1 in 5. Which means Griffin's infrastructure is embedded in the daily functioning of the American financial system at a scale that very few private individuals in the history of capitalism have ever achieved. His personal net worth sits between $42 billion and $51.2 billion, making him the second wealthiest person on this list, and the single most powerful financial operator who now calls Miami home. His 2022 decision to relocate Citadel's global headquarters from Chicago to Brickell was not a tax decision dressed up as a business story, though the tax dimension is real. It was a commitment. Thousands of high-income employees relocated, billions in institutional capital redirected, and the psychological signal sent to every other finance institution in the country that Miami was a place where serious money now lived and worked full-time. The physical transformation he's engineering is striking. A proposed $1 billion headquarters tower at 1201 Brickell Bay Drive, designed by Foster Plus Partners, one of the most prestigious architectural firms on the planet, is intended to be among the tallest buildings in the city. He currently anchors 830 Brickell as a tenant, paying record rents. He owns 1221 Brickell outright. He's developing a creative office campus in Wynwood. The man is not investing in Miami's future. He is constructing it, floor by floor. His philanthropic umbrella, Griffin Catalyst, has distributed over $2 billion globally, with recent South Florida allocations including $20 million for Vizcaya Village, $10 million to the Perez Art Museum, and $5 million to the Underline. He left Chicago citing high taxes and urban crime. He arrived in Miami and started spending at a level that communicates, beyond any ambiguity, that he intends to stay. Griffin is building the financial architecture of what Miami becomes next. But the man at number one didn't just choose Miami. He grew up here, once worked at a McDonald's, a few miles from his current $237 million island compound, and now has the largest fortune in this city's history by an almost incomprehensible margin. Number 1. The Bezos Dynasty. The Billionaire Bunker, the $6 million secret, and the most expensive homecoming in history. Let's put the number on the table immediately, somewhere between $215 billion and $224 billion. That is the estimated net worth of Jeff Bezos as of early 2026. For context, the second wealthiest person on this entire list is worth roughly $51 billion. The gap between number 1 and number 2 here is larger than most countries' GDP. When Bezos announced his permanent relocation from Seattle to Miami in late 2024, it wasn't covered as a lifestyle story. It functioned as a geopolitical signal for the entire city. Here is the detail that most national coverage glosses over. This is a homecoming. Bezos graduated valedictorian from Miami Palmetto Senior High School in 1982. He worked a summer job at a McDonald's in Miami as a teenager. The city that he is now reshaping through the gravitational force of a $220 billion fortune is the same city where he started. That arc, from local McDonald's employee to the man who owns the island in the middle of the bay, is one of the most genuinely extraordinary personal trajectories in the modern history of this country. Indian Creek Island is the address. A private municipality in Biscayne Bay with its own police force, extraordinary physical security, and a roster of neighbors that reads like a particularly exclusive contact list. Tom Brady, Carl Icahn, and others whose names move markets. Between 2023 and 2024, Bezos assembled a compound there through 3 sequential property acquisitions, totaling more than $237 million using the strategy of contiguous assembly. Buy adjacent lots, create a larger private footprint, eliminate the possibility of unwanted neighbors. This strategy generated a lawsuit that pulls back the curtain on how ultra-prime real estate actually operates at this level. The seller of Bezos' second property, Leo Chris, sued the brokerage Douglas Elliman, alleging that firm executives concealed the buyer's identity from him during negotiations. Chris's argument: had he known the adjacent lot was already owned by Bezos, meaning Bezos had the most compelling motivation in the world to acquire his property, he would never have accepted a $6 million reduction from his $85 million asking price. The case exposes a fundamental truth about wealth at this scale. Buyer anonymity is not a courtesy. It is a negotiating instrument worth millions of dollars, purchased as deliberately as the property itself. His presence in Miami has functioned as a permission structure for other tech and finance heavyweights to consider the city seriously. A Bezos premium that affects property valuations, social hierarchies, and business credibility across the entire Miami-Dade corridor. Blue Origin's proximity to the Florida Space Coast connects his aerospace ambitions to a state that has been in the space business longer than most of the companies now racing to join it. And there you have it. 8 families. 8 completely different definitions of what it means to own a city. Which one of these dynasties impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments. And for more such interesting peeks into the lives of rich, take a look at global status.